Welcome to your path to traditional publishing. This is the 411 on how to get a book deal from Allison Lane, your host. And welcome if you're joining us from the creative nonfiction community on Facebook, Wonderbar. If you found us on YouTube, that's fantastic too. I am coming to you from 25 years leading marketing and PR for brands you know and love, from Dove, the campaign for Real Beauty, to Axe, which is a deodorant body spray. I'm sorry to all the moms of 11-year-old boys out there. That was me launching that onto the world. My son has not discovered it yet, thank God, because it's terrible. So this workshop is for you if you're an aspiring author and you just want clear steps so you know what you're getting into and you're trying not to burn money, you know, like it's kindling. Or if you already wrote a book and you just want practical steps for moving toward getting an agent because you're not looking to waste time. Or if you're an expert, a coach, a service provider, a cultural critic, a professor, and you want to get on the speaking circuit, and you know that to do that you need some sort of third-party credibility stamp of approval. This is for you. So I'm not going to waste your time. I will give you actionable steps. I will offer you more opportunities to learn from me and from others. And you can work with me directly, but of course you don't need to. Stay around at the end for a big stretch of live Q&A and in-the-moment guidance. So starting from scratch, here's the skinny. To get published, you have to create your book. Now, if it's nonfiction, you don't have to create the whole book. If it's fiction or memoir, you have to write the whole kit and caboodle, the whole thing, because we need to know how it ends. And that's even if it's a collection of essays, that's a memoir, memoir-esque, we need the whole thing. Then you need to put your book aside and you need to craft a winning book proposal and query letter, which is the marketing behind the book. It's not your plot. It is not the lesson you learned, especially for those memoirists out there. It is literally who needs your book, why do they need it right now, quantify and qualify those people and cite your sources, and you have to think like a marketer. And if you can't do that, an agent is not going to do it for you because they are reading 150 queries a week. They're reading them on their phone. They're reading them after hours while they're watching Netflix. So try and think about that, about, when you scan things, when you scan Twitter and you're like, oh, you pass like 20 posts before you land on one that grabs your attention. That's how agents are dealing with this. They're like, well, they know they need a new client that's going to essentially pay them 2 years from now because they are 100% on commission. They don't get bonuses. So those of you who have agents, you should send your agent flowers or, a gift certificate for the Olive Garden or something so they can, celebrate a little bit of your win. But those agents, they need to know that you are handing them something that they can go to publishers with, because the publisher also is not your marketer. They're not your PR department. You have to do that for yourself. So why am I sharing this? I led PR and marketing for major brands forever and ever, The Body Shop, Burt's Bees, SAS Analytics. I can market anything to anyone, including, this lip balm. I can give you 40 different angles on how to sell this lip balm, on what's marketable about it, because that was my job. So when I tell you that every book has a marketing hook, it's not about your plot. It's about who is grappling with those same challenges, or if it's fiction, who wants to take that ride with you. That's your marketing hook. And your log line is definitely about the universal promise of your book. That's what you need to crack for, developing that book proposal. Now, the big problem for people who want to get a book deal is that they're trying to find one source for everything. Because there are endless sources, endless sources, and they're trying to DIY all the steps because authors are DIYers. You create magic straight from your brain. It's free. And so you're DIYing it. So you think like, oh, I'm sure I have the elements of the book proposal. I know how to do that. And for sure, you can learn it, but do you want to have to do that when you're going to get your agent and then you won't really have to develop that comprehensive of a book proposal ever again? Because once you do it once, you're like, oh, okay, now let me get back to writing the thing that actually sells. So the way I got into this is I went to a very, very expensive retreat. After my mother died, I spent part of my inheritance, her like pension from being a public school teacher for 38 years on this very fancy retreat, which was more like a vacation. And I didn't know that. And I just want to save people thousands of dollars from doing those things because they're not necessary. You go on a retreat or you take some really expensive class and you think you're going to come away with like a template or a what to do. And retreats are about finding community, maybe encouragement, being told what's needed, but not how to do it. And that's why I quit my big time PR job and started doing this, because I started getting, referrals on the side of, even from the woman who ran the retreat I went to, that I spent $10,000 on. That's not counting travel, $10,000 to, for somebody to open the door to publishing for me. But, I've been in publishing my whole life, not books, but marketing copy, content, sales copy, blogs, websites. I wrote a CEO's manifesto for him. Oh my God, he had a pinky ring. He was the worst. But the magic to getting a book deal is that you have to have a clear vision for your book in the market. And if you don't have that, then you should join the creative nonfiction community and we can all help you. I'm the host. We have moderators, published authors, agented authors, professional writers, writers who are on their way. And today I'm just sharing a lot because I want you guys all to have this. So you might be thinking like, my book's going to be the greatest hit. Like it's the next fill in the blank. Like I'm the next Abigail Thomas, who's a memoirist I love. Or you can learn this from anybody else. Like that's true. But I'm telling you that I have looked for this kind of methodology from a lot of people, and I'm not seeing it. There's a lot that people sort of leave to you to fill in the blank, and that's why most proposals are more like chest beating than they are marketing hook. So, and I can tell you, I'm getting texts right now from 2 different clients I work with one-on-one for their proposal package, and they're both getting, offers today. And one said, oh, I thought she just boxed me. I thought I was going to go with like agent B, but now agent D just said she wants to meet with me. Should I meet with her? I'm like, yes, for sure. For Sheezy, you want agents to want to present how they would manage your book, just like you would want, if you're adding on a room to your house, you want to hear different contractors give you pitches. Like, I would do this. What about a vaulted ceiling? How about we keep it small? What else are you going to, let's plan for what your career is going to look like. And then you choose one that's the right fit for you, who you trust, who makes time for you. Same with the agent search. Okay. So you believe in your book and you want to know, how do I get it out there? Here are 3 ways. First, you have to follow the standards. You have to think like a marketer, and you have to DIY the right things. Which means, investing wisely and thinking like a bookseller. And whether that's, Amazon's, incredible like book marketing machine, or the Barnes and Noble store manager, you have to think like, how is this book selling? And it's not about your plot. So in terms of a book proposal, you're following the industry standards, right? You want your format to be black text, double space, 12 point, Times New Roman. Why? Because a serif font, not sans serif, despite the fact that we all like it, we all love Montserrat as a font. Serif fonts are easier to read. Period. So I don't care. Garamond, Times New Roman, pick something that's readable that you could live with and make it that. Word counts have to be within range. If you are trying to get your book published and you're writing, a memoir, and you write it 150,000 words, it's too long. It's not within range. The publishing industry is not, your book is twice as long as it needs to be, or not enough. If you're writing, a middle grade nonfiction, and a middle grade is for kids age 8 to, let's say, 13, but probably 12, and you write 10,000 words, that's more of a chapter book. That's not middle grade. Middle grade is 30,000 to 50,000. So you've got to be within the ranges. Plus, you have to have a proposal and a query letter, and then you've got to use the industry tools that are available to everyone. So here's why this is super important. I'm just making sure I'm checking checking stuff. Okay. Because when agents decline their queries, it's usually because, the easy no's, fast no's come when your book is outside of the word count that is expected, when there's typos and grammar and formatting, and it's just like hard to look at, like a big fat hot mess. When you're not following submission directions, like, share with us your first chapter, or we want to see your whole proposal. When there's not a compelling proposal or marketing and sales plan, and that's what the proposal is a marketing and sales plan. If it's not compelling, if you don't know how to sell your book, no one else is going to do it for you. And then if the query isn't tight, that query letter is essentially premise and promise to the reader, plot, and then a pro bio. It is that. Another format that was coined by an agent, Carly Waters, is hook, book, and cook. It's very clever. But when you talk about premise, we're talking about metadata. We're talking about comps. We're talking about the universal promise to readers. That's not about your plot. And then your plot paragraph, essentially the book paragraph, is what happens, not what were you thinking about, or what did you come to learn, or what did your character grow to appreciate. It's like the movement of what happens to the characters. Even if you're writing nonfiction, even if you're writing a prescriptive how-to book about how to turn your your neighborhood vacant lot into a community garden, there's a plot there. There's a universal promise there, and that you have to be tight on that. You have to know what that is, and then for sure use the tools that are available. There are a ton of tools that are free, and before I go into those, let me share word counts by genre. So picture books, that's you read to your child. They're around 300 words. But boy, do agents love picture books with fewer words than 300. Why? Because a picture tells 1,000 words. So the illustrator of your book is actually doing more than 50% of moving the book along. So a picture book is very structured. It is front and back with cover, and the inside cover, it's 32 pages. So forget the cover and the inside cover. So that means it's 28 pages, which means that when you open it up, each spread accounts for one section, right? That's 14 spreads. 14 spreads. Every other one is going to be really heavy with images or illustrations. So you really only have 12 spreads to provide dialogue or fill in the blank or something. So 300 words seems like not a lot, but once you figure out like, wow, only 14 spreads, like that, it actually becomes a lot less. A lot fewer words are needed, or much fewer words. So in picture books, you don't need a proposal. So don't do that. Don't waste your money, because that is unfortunate, but it's a lot of people think like, oh, but I have to do this. No, you don't. No, picture books agents don't want your proposal. It's unnecessary. Most picture books sell for anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000 maybe, but most of them are about $7,000 to $10,000, because the publisher still has to pay an illustrator, which is important. They're not interested in your, illustrations, and for sure do not hire someone to make your illustrations for you. They're not interested in that. So save your money. Middle grade, we talked about, that's 30,000 to 50,000 words. And you do need a proposal. You need a proposal for everything else. And you need the full manuscript for fiction. Young adult can be, 50 to 90,000 words. So look at Leigh Bardugo and Veronica Roth in terms of young adult, which sometimes gets into dystopian and sci-fi, which you could go up, especially if you're world building. But if it's your debut, stay under 100,000. And I know, Mona, you're going to say, oh, but sci-fi can go up to, 110. That's true. But do you want to push the envelope, or do you want an agent to say yes right away and then ask you to add 10,000 words? So, just 99,000 words is super. We don't need to know 99,652. It's just whatever that round number is, 55, 72, 81, whatever. Fiction can vary, but somewhere between 65,000 and 85,000 words is a nice range. Romance is all over the place, so I can't even comment on that. Memoir lately, under 80,000 is great. Even though, in terms of range, sometimes people say up to 90,000. 65, 75,000 is like a sweet spot. And then nonfiction for sure varies, but my clients, I try and keep them under 80. Over 80 becomes a really hefty book, and we don't need that, especially if you're, looking for a publisher to say yes really fast. Okay, tools that can help you that are free. A digital editor. So use more than Word. Use Grammarly, AutoCrit, ProWritingAge, Otter.ai. I have used Otter, which is an app on my phone. I've used Otter to write, while I'm walking the dogs. I just have, I essentially talk into my phone. I'm on a rant. So I'm not revising, I'm not self-editing and correcting myself. I'm really in a flow, and I've written, an entire multiple times, entire articles just while I'm walking the dog. And it takes me so much less time because it's the first draft, it gets out of there and really fast, and it's conversational, so it's approachable. It's the way to go. Also, it's a great way to capture dialogue. And did I mention it's free? Free is good. If you want to, you can pay for the upgrade. I paid for the upgrade once, and I think it was like $113. And that was when I was interviewing a lot of people. And so it does these great timestamps, but then I downgraded because I stopped interviewing people for work. But boy, if you're out there, interviewing or trying to like discern different voices, Otter is great, and it's worth the upgrade. If here are other ways to leap over roadblocks, and this is all so that you get published. This is all about speed. So use Otter. If you have writer's block, use brackets. Brackets, insert more dialogue here. Brackets, look up, pickup lines from the 1970s, and then hop to the next section. If you get stuck on one section, keep moving, because the momentum breeds, that progress, and you can always come back to something. I don't suffer from writer's block. I suffer from writer's overwhelm, where I'm like, which way do I go? So for me, I use Trello, which is free. It is a project management tool. You can download it for free. Do not buy the upgrades. It is super simple. That way, I can make little tasks for every essay or every chapter that I'm working on, and that way I can prioritize them. You just drag them and drop them into a list, kind of like Scrivener, but without needing, a advanced degree. Scrivener turned out to be too much for me. I couldn't do it. But it's novelists swear by Scrivener. It just was not for me. Here's another way to overcome a roadblock. Cut and paste an example of what you are doing from another book. Like, just put it in brackets, like something like this, and put it here, or something like this line of dialogue, put it in here. All that formatting that people get, caught up with, you can do that later. Don't stop for that. That's a pain in the rear. Fluff the pillows later. You can just plain text, single space, get it done, get it out. And then roadblocks, before you pay an editor, before you pay anybody, critique partners and beta readers. Your beta reader is not your family member. It is not your sister. She is never going to read your manuscript. I swear to God, she's not. Your mom might, but her input isn't really helpful because she doesn't read your genre, right? So but avoid input before you have a draft, because you wouldn't get input on a half-built house or a half-done painting or cook a meal halfway and be like, how do you like it? Just finish a draft and then get the input. When you start thinking like a bookseller, you can be less precious about your book baby. And follow the vapor trail to the marketing plans that other authors have paved before you. You can reverse engineer anybody's path to publication, because your message already has an audience who needs it now, and that audience is listening to somebody else. So if you think, my audience, they just love this other person, and I guess I'm too late. Like, no, you're not. That other person, I don't care if it's like Sean Korn, who's like the meditation yoga guru, like, your audience has read Sean's books. They're now ready for your books or your articles. So go to Sean's website and see where they have published articles or spoken. Then you can pitch that too. You can find out, okay, well, before Sean got a book deal, what did they do? And you can create that list, that boop, 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 boop list. Stephanie Land, whose work I freaking love, who wrote the memoir Made, and then recently got turned into a Netflix series that I could not bring myself to watch because I love the book too much. And I don't want to see it on screen. It was too raw. She just published articles in Scary Mommy and Romper and like 3 or 4 publications for a long time until one of her pieces went viral. But even that piece was not an excerpt from her book. It was a commentary about the topic of her book. And that's where people miss up. They think, oh, I'll just excerpt my book. No, we don't want an excerpt. We want you to talk to the people who need to know about your book. Okay. So when we're talking about getting that book deal, we want to know how your book is going to stand out on the shelves, right? We want to know between the story and the trend and the market, why, like, where is the piece that is that identifies like that moment of where your marketing hook is. So you've got to look at the trend and the market and the story, and like right in the middle there, that's your hook. When I put together a book proposal 2 years ago, and I set that aside. But when I did, you know, my proposal was really clever, and my chapters were, I want to say, okay. And an expert said it was ready and introduced me to agents. And the response I got back was, love your voice, don't see the opportunity in the market. And that is the thing that works. You have to, yes, the writing has to be great, but you have to have a vision for where it lives in the market. And now that I know that, I know I can go back and revive that proposal so that it really sings and is an easy yes. The undeniable yes is what we're going for. So I want to skip to a couple of notes. So when you're investing wisely about your book, or about your, whether it's nonfiction or essays or your memoir or your sci-fi, or, you know, your how to, you know, become the best you book, you know, you want to think about the themes of your message, not your plot or your experience. It's, what does this offer to readers? And if you go to every Amazon book sales page, there's marketing language there. Most of it is not about the plot. Usually there's a log line at the top, and it'll say, you know, this book is about, you know, the intersectionality of, you know, childhood memories and discovering oneself, needed for anyone grappling with, you know, unrecovered trauma and, you know, the long caregiving, you know, long stretches of caregiving. And you're like, well, great. Well, what happens in the book? That's the next paragraph. So that first paragraph, that hooky line, that's what every author needs to go on, is what, you know, what are the themes that your book touches on? That's the way you find your audience. And your audience is not who you think it is. It is, your audience is way deeper than that. They have a problem, they want something, that you can quantify who they are, whether they're, you know, fans of Dan Brown, which you can quantify, or they're people with undiagnosed depression. You can quantify that. Just ask Google, it'll tell you, it'll give you, you know, sources like the New York Times, the US government, the census, the any credible media source is totally fine as well. Vanity Fair, Psychology Today, etc. Okay, I see a couple of people have questions. So the what is next? Once you know your themes, your audience, and believe me, it's not, a problem that a lot of people have when they're putting together their book proposal is that they think their audience is people really wanting this, or they need this, or they should really know this. That's different. That comes across as like you begging instead of just saying anyone, moving cross country trying to find community. Great. Well, who are those people? So you name them, you give them some sort of description in 13 words or less. You put that in bold, friends, put it in bold. And then you Google how many people relocated in the last 2 years more than one state away. Google will tell you, or, Bing, but why would you use another, why wouldn't you use Google? And so then you have, how many of those people are there? What are their problems? Then you Google, what problems do people have when they relocate? Okay, now you know exactly what their problems are, and cite that source. That is your reader. That goes into your book proposal. Yeah, you could definitely start to craft your marketing roadmap by knowing who those people are. Then you can back into where you're placing articles, what your peer group of authors and content are going to be. So my message to you is invest wisely, DIY the right things like your manuscript. Nobody can write your manuscript except for you. Invest in your proposal. And that means, set your manuscript aside, or set your 2 sample chapters aside. And actually for nonfiction, usually what I do with my one-on-one clients is they always come to me and say, oh, I already have written, the chapters for this. I just need the book proposal. And I go, yeah. What we do is we do the book proposal first. That informs the structure of the book, how it's going to hang together. Because you can't just write your chapter and be like, now I have to write the proposal. Once you define where the marketing hook is, where the market opportunity is, it really defines what the structure of the chapter is going to look like, what the structure of the book is going to look like. So we always start with the proposal and we back into what those chapters are. That's not true for fiction, just for nonfiction. So we invest in that proposal methodology, invest in the query letter, invest in your community. Certainly, if you're working on a query letter and you think you've got it down, before you, march that thing out and really put it to use and send it to agents, share it in the creative nonfiction community or in the Manuscript Academy. If you invest in that, the creative nonfiction community is free. Share your query and ask for input. I mean, why not? Because we're a community of writers, right? Or book time with me, AllisonLaneLiterary.com. In an hour, I can write your query from the blank page and identify agents who are looking for your story today. Swear. And invest in that agent search. That's something that is free. You can just get you can look in Publishers Marketplace, which is free online. You can, look at that, or spend $25 for 1 month and really go into the deep dive. It's very affordable, $25. You can do it. So what is next? We only have about, a little bit more than 15 minutes left. We should take some questions. So let me go into the questions. Let me go from the top. Tiffany. Okay, Kavita had to go off camera probably because she is treating patients. Because Kavita, you are seriously, your latest piece in MSNBC was so darn good. I freaking loved it, and I feel like you were just the topics you write about are super needed in the world, and I really want us to talk when you get time. So Mona said, I just sent an agent coffee and she's not even my agent yet. Oh, nice. And Mona, I'm sorry that your grandsons are using Axe. That is smelly. We used to call them Axe bombs in the office. We would just break open the dispenser and toss it in somebody's office. And then the facilities management got really mad because then nobody could be in that area of the office for the rest of the day because it was a lot. Okay, questions. Everybody has questions. Rachel says memoir 60 to 80,000. Yeah, 80,000 words. Exactly, Rachel. Okay, Mona, you have questions. I got to the part where you have questions. So Cher, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Okay, I have one question and then one or two comments. My question is when I submit chapters to an agent, should I start a new chapter at the beginning of a page? It looks cleaner to me that way, and I was just wondering about your opinion.
When in a proposal?
No, if they ask for chapters, like some agents, when you send them a query, they will ask for 5 pages, they will ask for 10 pages, some will ask for 2 chapters or whatever. Some will ask for 50 pages. So that involves several chapters. Should I start a chapter at the beginning of a new page? Because
I do.
Cleaner. You do?
Yeah.
I think it looks cleaner that way.
I do. Especially, usually when I'm querying with clients, the proposal includes the 2 sample chapters at the end. And we make 3 versions of the proposal. We make the Word document that's nicely formatted. And then I make a PDF of that. And then I take the nicely formatted version and I strip out all of the images, all of the stuff. I don't save it as a plain text, but I make everything Arial 11 or Calibri or Calibri, depending on who you are. I make it, 11 point, and I strip out everything to make it really easy to cut and paste, because some agents have the query manager and it's easier to cut and paste that way. I take out all the special characters, or they want the query and the first 30 pages, first 10 pages, cut and paste it into just an email. And then I just put it in there. Very seldom do they want an actual attachment.
I know. And if it's query manager, which most of them want, and they say 30 pages or 50 pages, you could get more in the 50 pages, but it wouldn't look as clean and neat as if you divide it up with a new chapter at the beginning of each.
They want it. They don't care. Okay. They really don't care. It's just, sometimes they ask for first 5 pages, and that's not even your first chapter. I know. And they don't care that it ends without the sentence ending. They just want to know, can you write?
The other thing is, I loved, you suggested not sharing until you have your first draft. And that was the whole gist of editing without losing your voice, which I absolutely loved that. And I was, I'm going to check out Trello, but I was in a presentation that was free earlier this week on fantasy writing. And I listened to Mary Robinette Kowal, and I'm going to put in the chat the program that she uses to write. It is not free, and I checked it out, and it is kind of complicated, but if anyone is interested, I'm going to put it in the chat. So anyway, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, Rachel, Carol says, what was your link for help and how do we find an agent who's interested in our subject? Okay, so those are two different questions. Link for help is if you want help from me, directly from me, I have starting at the end of this month, I have a 6-week program so that you can use all of my bells and whistles, everything that I do with my my one-on-one clients, where we start from scratch, from the blank page. They don't even have chapters available yet, and we develop an entire book proposal, including their 2 sample chapters. I show you how to query agents, find agents who are looking for you. And when you find agents that are looking for you, you get really quick replies. That's when people say, like, I haven't heard and it's been 6 months. It's because you're querying the people who are not looking for you, or you're querying the most popular agents in the world. Why? Why would you do that? Why would you query somebody at Writer's House who literally, they look at you with a stink eye if you are not giving them an exclusive submission? Like, I wouldn't roof my house without getting multiple estimates.
Right. Not kind of, excuse me, I understand all that. My question is, how do you find those agents? I mean,
finding the agents, Publishers Marketplace.
Okay, but ones that are actually like I'm doing a memoir about my mom, and it's actually written, but I mean, I go online and then so often I see not accepting new clients, not accepting admissions, not accepting that, and so how do you do it? How do you find the ones that would be interested at least in hearing from you? That's my big dilemma.
I start with, even with, my clients, I use the tools that are available, right? So I start with Publishers Marketplace. I also look for, I do a lot of digital detective work to look for books about the same themes, even if they're not about memoir, books with the same themes that were published in the last 3 years. And then I backtrack, I reverse engineer who those agents were, because clearly they're interested in dysfunctional families or, growing, like having a homestead or whatever,
right.
Or, adoptive experiences.
Right.
And so I look for all of that. And then I also I use the Manuscript Academy, the MSWL hashtag. I use that on advanced Twitter, and I look for agents who are using those terms. And there are a ton of ways to use those terms. So I don't just search for memoir. In fact, I would advise not to.
Right. But how do you find out who, I mean, unless you buy the book, how do you know who the author's agent was?
Publishers Marketplace.
Okay.
There's a who represents, button.
Oh, okay.
Or you can just look for their deal report, and it comes up.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's worth $25 to get your membership to Publishers Marketplace. Even for 1 month is $25, and it's not you don't have to do a year's subscription. It could just be a month. So it's worth it. And don't buy all these books. You can go to the library. Julie says you can go to the library. I use Amazon. I mean, if I had to read every book that, my clients and I are looking at for each of their proposals, for each of them, we probably look at 50 books. And they say the same thing. How am I going to write about how my book is similar versus different? Like, we can tell from the marketing language about what this book is about. And on Amazon, if you're a Prime member, you can essentially click the inside the book. You can click that and you can see what the writing's like. And half the time, the book will be billed as self-help, but it's really memoir. Or it'll be billed as memoir, but it's really like a narrative research book. It's very academic, but that might be the difference. It might still be a good comp, like, my book covers the same content, but from a different perspective, or has a different voice, or from a different time period, etc. Let's see. Link for help, Carol, literary.com. So if you want to work with me, I'm just dropping my website into the chat. Book an hour. Let's figure out what your like the path to get over your challenge. Like, Carol, we could sit and identify 40 agents who are out there looking for your work today, and for sure in an hour.
Okay.
Up to you. Okay, other questions. Somebody said, can you talk more about theme?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get what you're saying, the difference between theme and plot, but yeah, just a little more clarity. And yeah, so I'm kind of in the middle of writing my book proposal. I've worked a little bit with an agent at Manuscript Academy for what they're looking for, but I had a specific question because my memoir is literary memoir, and so I'm finding a lot of the agents that pick up memoirs, they're more of the, super commercial, like famous people or really dramatic stories, and this is more of like a spiritual journey of self-discovery, philosophical kind of memoir. So how do you find those agents?
Okay, that's two questions. So I'm going to give you the two questions. I just want to separate them. So what is your book about is not about you. So I always start with the digital research to find out. I start with make a list of all the themes that your book covers. Motherhood, the like patriarchy, building community, whatever those things are, make a list. Your list is going to be a page long. Then look for books that cover that. The great thing about Amazon is that it has all of these like marketing segmentations. They're not genres. Books about sisterhood, memoir about sisterhood, nonfiction about family relationships. Look at those lists. That's where you find the comps, and that's also where you find the language, like marketing language that connects all of these books. When you do that, you find your marketing hook. When you do that as well, you find the comps that then you might find 30 different books that sort of live in this space about, feminism, let's say. So feminism, you're going to see Roxane Gay, you're going to see Wendy C. Ortiz and Excavation, that literary memoir, and which was not a great seller and totally got ripped off by the woman who wrote My Dark Vanessa. But it's beloved by writers. And so then you're going to see how they talk about what their book offers and how the plot itself is buried. It's part of the marketing language, but it's not like anybody wants to pick up any of these books because they want to see a 15-year-old get groomed by her English teacher. I'm speaking about Excavation. It's because of what the book says. And so that's a way it's a path to find your agent is, who are the agents who are loving that kind of writing. And so the way to do that is you got to sort of like back into it by defining your themes and your peer group of writers and how they market, and you will find those agents.
So you're saying by what the book says, not maybe the way the book says it? So
You,
my
one of your
kids were
themes
really
might be the tone and the voice.
Right.
It might be,
talking about voice. Yeah.
yeah, it might be the voice. It might be, lyrical. And so that might be one of the descriptors of what your book offers without diving into what happens in the book.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It might be about, I was working with a literary memoirist just last night, and she had developed a list of her keywords, which is the first step in my process, is developing your keywords. And her list was like maybe 10 long. And after our 90-minute session, we had 30 pages. Because, number one, because I work fast and furious, because I'm a marketer at heart, and I worked for Fortune 50 companies, and they don't like hand wringing, and you know what I mean. They're like, get it done, and it's due yesterday.
Yeah.
And also, and the whole time she's like, wait, I want to talk about that. Like, no, we're not doing that. We have to be fast about, where the opportunities are, and then whittle down really fast. Just make the decisions. So by the time we were finished, we had 30 pages of comps, of themes, of audiences, that she hadn't thought about because she was so focused on her story. Like, no, the story's about that. I do have a story about that. I'm like, well, that story says to me, veiled expectations and secrets that women hold. And she was like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay, we're going to write that down, because that is not about your plot. That is about the theme that you could be used to describe, a dozen other books. Let's see what those books are. And that becomes sort of your, sisterhood of comp writers. And some of those comps might be sales comps. Some of them might be comps that you put in the query, either or. This is the joy of having a marketing mind, is that once you do that work, you can really then back into who the agents are who want to be the advocates for those stories. And those are not big money makers for the agents, but they might represent a variety of nonfiction, or sometimes memoir and fiction, go together for an agent's portfolio, because they're really invested, and you've given them a proposal that is an easy sell, because they'll send it around, but they're not going to find your marketing hook for you. You got to do that yourself. So hopefully that was helpful. Okay. Mona says, make sure to check the literary site. Yes, exactly. And I do this every time I'm querying with any client. Even though I go to all of these sites all the time, they change their submission guidelines all the time. I, put query in the subject line. Sometimes, an agent will then say, like, no, send it to me directly. You got to know what you're sending out. Carol says, I was able to get into this event on Facebook instead of the link you sent us. That link wanted a password. Yeah, sorry, Carol. I am hiring someone to manage the automation of these webinars so that I don't have to, because as you can imagine, when you're good at one thing, you're not good at other things. And so it is good for me to outsource any kind of technology, because it's not my bag. But I'm glad you got here.
Thank you.
Okay. The point of all of this is that there are elements to being a writer that should just be available. You should know that agents can be found on Publishers Marketplace. You should know that a proposal is needed to sell your book to a traditional publisher. And what sucks about publishing is that that's not known. And hopefully none of you is like me, where you spent $10,000 to learn that you're a great writer and you have a great story, and to have, hot air blown up your skirt, and to be told you're an amazing writer, and then to be told now there's this other sort of obstacle course you have to go through. So I'm here to tell you up front that if you want to be published by a traditional publisher, you need to write your book, or for nonfiction, you need to write your book proposal and always know what your marketing hook is, so that you can find those agents, which you don't have to pay to query. You don't have to pay somebody for an introduction, because imagine this, people pay, like they'll go to a retreat because a retreat host will introduce them to an agent. The agent, all they're letting you do is cut the line. The agent still has to look at your query and look at the proposal, identify the marketing hook. It doesn't do anything for you except cut the line. The agent is still looking for a sure sell. Despite the fact that even if they love your story, they only get to eat, at the Olive Garden if they sell your book. So they're the realtors of the literary world. And they know a nice, arts and craftsman when they see it. So give it to them. So, okay, Kavita, we have to find time to talk. Not today, but it doesn't have to be today, but we have to find a time to talk. Yes, right. And Mona says the absolute best way to land an agent is to query. And your query has got to sing. It has to be so sharp and so unmistakable. And if you are not getting input on your query, you are missing out on getting, making it even sharper, because you only get one chance, like one bite at that apple for that one agent, because a no today is a no forever. They say you can come back and query again, but they will recognize that and they will be like, So maybe you get a second chance for sure, but query right, query smart, query have your poop in a group the first time, and do that in a community, and do it with me. You can book an hour with me, join my program. I'm telling you, it works. I have just a string of clients who get agent requests, in the first hour they query. I mean, it's just unheard of. In the first day, now I have a client who, she just got her fourth offer from an agent inside of 2 weeks. She got the first 3 in 3 days. And it's because, you're querying the right people. You're querying the people who say that they're looking for you. They're advertising, hey, please send me your thing that you're writing, that you're sharp, your market. It's not their job, it's your job. You can all do it. We can all do it. Where do you find the program here it is. Boop. There. Rachel, there you go. The information for my program, the Badass Book Proposal Program. This is 6 weeks, beginning to end. You get everything. You get live time with me. You can have me on Voxer. Boom, boom, boom. Voxer's free, guys. It's like a walkie-talkie on your phone. And you don't have to invest my one-on-one program where I work with you one-on-one. It's $8,000. That's good for business owners. It's not good for, for everyone. So a group program that's small like this might be the way to go. If not, just keep showing up and helping each other. And thank you. Now I'm going to call it a day. Thank you so much for showing up. I love you guys. See you soon.